So the Riydiah Comedy Festival is over, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on it. I thought it was a pretty big deal. Um, we had some of the biggest names in comedy go over to Saudi Arabia, basically just to cash out, um, get a massive payday for a single performance. Um, I thought this was a huge deal, and it was pretty revealing about some of the comedians and their decision to go over there and like, what they think and believe or whatever. Um but yeah, pretty astonishing, like the sums of money that people were getting paid, like up to $1.6 million, again, just for like one show or whatever. That wasn't everyone, but like some of the biggest names. There's just a lot of problems with this. Like, I think it's just weird inherently for stand-up comedians to be doing shows for governments. Like, it's one thing to, and some people have like kind of defended, some of the comics who went over there have kind of defended this by saying like, oh, we're like bringing free speech to the people over there. It's like that would it when you're doing the show for the government, and literally in the contract, like it says, like you can't talk about religion, you can't talk about the government or whatever. That's a very different thing than if you're just a comedian doing a show for a government is a very different thing than a comedian doing a show for a comedy club. So I don't know. It was just, I mean, very disappointing. Some of the people who went over there was like, all right, kind of more expected, but some of the people was more surprising. I mean, I feel like a lot of people online were pretty shocked, like, oh, Bill Burr, like really. Um, and then credit to Mark Maron and David Cross for, you know, I don't think they called anyone out by name, but they called the people like out as a group and were like, "Hey, the comedians that did this, like this isn't good for comedy." And I totally agree with that. A good this was not good for comedy as a whole. Um and credit to the comedians who said no to this, turned it down, talked about how there were freedom of speech regulations. I mean, Dave Chappelle, like how could you say that, you know, you have more freedom of speech there when you literally signed a contract that says you can't talk about religion, you can't talk about the royal family. Like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. When stuff like this happens, I mean, yeah, comedians like George Carlin seem more and more like prophets. Like, uh, yeah, I don't know. It's just disappointing. Like, just for these comedians to do this. Credit to one comic who went over there, then released a statement like saying, "Oh, I shouldn't have done this," and then I think donated the money they got paid for doing the show. So full credit to them if that story's like 100% true. Um, I think that's better than doing nothing or just taking the money from the Saudi government. I mean, it wasn't like these comedians were allowed to go over there and criticize the government, you know. I mean, explicitly they said they wouldn't. Um, I don't know, and some comics have said like, oh, they were able to talk about like taboo subjects. And who knows, like this is total speculation, but like again, like, are those people, like, laughing, like, in good faith, like, when you're making jokes, like, about gay people or whatever, like, if you're up there and you're punching down, like, again, like, you know, I don't know. It's just a strange situation to put yourself in, and I mean, really, again, the big elephant in the room is, I'm just doing this for the massive payday, obviously. So, um, I don't know. Either way, it was just very disappointing to see a lot of the comedians that did that. It was bad for comedy to do that. I The comedians that did that, it's like, all right, now it's like, can we trust you? Like, are you for sale? Like, what will you say or do, you know, for the money? Um, and then credit to the people who just flat out said no, like Shane Gillis and the comic who like released the details of the contract. Um, and then again, like David Cross and Mark Maron for condemning this. Um, yeah, I feel like this was definitely a really big deal in comedy. Uh, Bill Burr's kind of been out there like doubling down, which is, also been surprising to see. As someone who's like a longtime fan of him and seen him live more than once. Yeah, I definitely didn't have that on my bingo card, and as some other people have said, it is, like, kind of, like, a strange issue for him to, like, really be like, "No, this is the issue I really, really care about." Yeah, I mean, again, like, other than just to, like, come out and admit, like, "I did this for the money." Um, but yeah, I will not dispute the talent of a lot of the comedians that went over there, but I guess the morals or ethics, or if it's truly about the art of comedy, or if it's more about a payday, that's really kind of what I feel like this was about at the end of the day. Also, like the morals and ethics of like, when you're taking money from a government, you are kind of endorsing you are endorsing that government, I mean, and that was something else Bill Burr was saying. It's like, in the United States, we have blood on our hands, and of course, it's like our government isn't innocent, but again, it's like people would have been condemning comedians if they were doing a show for the United States government, like, obviously, and again, just, j because because our government is also bad doesn't mean you should do stuff for a bad government. And then again, already on its face, as a comedian, to do a show for a nation state is very weird and the opposite of what a comedian should be. Comedians should be, making jokes at the expense of power, punching up instead of, placating to uh, the powerful and, doing their bidding or entertaining for them or whatever, or, at least the good comics anyway. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was a huge deal. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you made it this far in the video, thanks so much for watching. Appreciate you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.